was just bellowing loud enough for everybody. Anybody else need a mask? Since we're going back to masks today, we can make sure you get them. There's a couple over here that just walked in. Folks pass them back that way. And it's potluck day, so some folks are out there setting up our yummy food. So, There we go. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our sanctuary. We got a little bit rearranged. Our Masonic co-renters, well, not co-renters, they own the building, but they were in here doing some work, and so hopefully everything is set up reasonably well. I guess I should take off my mask so you can actually hear me. Anyway, I'm Reverend Dr. Claudia Hall. My pronouns are she or they. I'm really tired this morning. How are y'all doing today? Doing the same. All right. I am just ready for this heat to break. How about you? Yes. All right. Well, hopefully we can at least stay inside in the cool weather today and enjoy some fun and fellowship after service. We do have a bunch of new guests and returning guests, so feel free to reach out to somebody during our coffee hour, well, our potluck hour, but also as we get settled this morning. I do have the pre-announcement, as I made, is that we did go back to yellow. If you ever have a question, just check the door on the way in. We always have it taped up there. We have our little smiley face hearts on there to tell you what level we are. But if you forget, we'll remind you. I'm sincerely hoping that this will dip down once the kids have been in school for a couple of weeks and we get past the sharing of germs, and then we can get back into our green mode. Everybody fingers crossed. So, but until then, better safe than sorry. So, yes, get your new vaccines. I just got my 8th shot this last week. So, all right, we welcome everyone this morning to this home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope, for we are Unitarian Universalists. was absolutely perfect because I'm awake now. So that's great. Thank you so much, Joy. We needed that today. An important ritual in our Unitarian Universalist faith is the lighting of our chalice. We have so many interpretations and so many words to light our chalices and things. And this morning, I'm inviting Jennifer to come forward and light our chalice as we start our kids. Is this today? Is today the day? Next week. Okay. We're so close to the start of our new year. So I invite you to join with me today in reciting our unison words as we project them on the screen. We light this chalice today as a symbol of love at the center of all we think, feel, and do. We light this chalice in thanks for our planet and the life it grants us. We light this chalice in hope for the future of our species, that we may learn to live in harmony with the earth, not harming it or each other. Thank you very much. Will you join with me as you're willing and able in a spirit of prayer and meditation? Spirit of hope, consolation in our grief, we turn to you today for hope in times that seem ever more hopeless. We face grief in so many ways, on so many fronts, and at times it gets harder and harder to grasp for hope or joy by the very day. Inspire us, we pray, to find hope in the tenacious weeds that cling to life in concrete jungles, to find love in the way people are doing good work on so many levels, and to find peace in ourselves with the knowledge that any change is just a new beginning. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you all to take a moment and greet somebody you don't know as well this morning, make a new connection, and then we're going to go into our first hymnal, Sing a Song with Me. It's a tradition here at Metro East that we lift up in each service the values that we hold so dear. This week, we're intertwining a bunch because we're lifting up the values of interdependence, transformation, and generosity. Interdependence says we honor the interdependent web of all existence with reverence for the great web of life and all. Wow, I'm just really not here today, folks. I do apologize. So most of you may not know this. I've actually been diagnosed with pretty severe cataracts in both eyes, and so I'm doing this number today, and it's just not working. Okay, let's try this again. Time out. Take two. We have reverence for the great web of life, and with humility, we acknowledge our place in it. We covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. The value of transformation says we adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. Generosity says we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. I believe that these are not just nice words written by a committee to talk about in church, but these are actually things we all have to learn as humans on this planet if our species is to survive. We must honor the earth and our interdependence, and we can no longer pretend that human beings are somehow above the world and can use it as we like. We must transform who we are, how we act, and the way we live if there is to be any hope for ourselves and our species. We must live as though there is already hope, sharing resources with others if there is ever to be an end to exploitation and war. Our values summary that has come out this year is not just what we believe, it is also a Unitarian Universalist blueprint for the future that we want to create together. And as part of creating that future, we come together and acknowledge that each of us carries with us the weight of so many things. Our own trauma and past and history, the loves that we have in our life and the burdens that they bear, and then also the joys, the little things that get us up in the morning, and also the big, exciting moments. It is one of the greatest privileges of being a minister is getting to be with people in those moments, whether it's a birth or a birthday, whether it's an accomplishment, a new job, or a graduation. Exactly. Whatever it is, it's a pleasure to be here, and I take great gratitude and great joy in that. And as we come into our Joys and Sorrows ritual, I invite all of you to be open to that transforming practice as we share in community. We invite you to come up this way and around if you are able and take a stone or many. I know some of you could empty this whole bowl, but just take a few that represent you and we'll put it in the water to know that we are all held in the circle of love here in this place. If you can't make your way up, just raise your hand and somebody else will help you with your burden and will bring stones up for you. Let us be in a time of prayer and meditation. we come now to what is rapidly becoming one of my favorite but also most poignant parts of the service, our children's moment. As you know, I've been working all summer long on making these banned books because Illinois is the only state in the union that currently has a ban on banning books. In Missouri, it has gotten so bad that the St. Charles Library School Districts have said that if you have any complaints about a book, it'll be pulled off the shelves for children. So in theory, you could go to Francis Howell School District and say something like, I don't like cats, so you should get rid of all books with cats in them. Well, it's funny when it's cats, but it's not funny when it's black bodies or brown bodies or queer bodies or women's bodies or so many things that people just want to pretend don't exist. So one of the things that our country has been very good at pretending doesn't exist in our hundreds of years in existence is our native population. I grew up in Florida very close to one of the reservations, and I remember when they finally allowed the Cherokee people to speak their own language. Did you know that it was 1991 before it was legal to speak Cherokee? It was literally illegal for them to teach the Cherokee language to their children in the schools there until 1991. That is within many, if not most, of our lifetimes. So this book was banned because it made white people uncomfortable because of how awful we have treated the Native people. Well, folks, we should be terribly upset about that fact. We should be terribly upset about the fact that there are 13,000 Navajo tribal members that still do not have electricity because the U.S. government says it is too expensive. It would cost $1 billion. Do you know how much our federal debt goes up every day? A lot more than $1 billion. It is sheer racism and greed that puts us into this place. But at the same time, despite all of the absolute genocide, and I'm not using that word lightly, the literal genocides that we have committed on these folks, they are still here. And this book, today's banned book, it's called We Are Grateful. And it is a book talking about the Cherokee practice of gratitude. And so I want to extend this out with the knowledge that the words in this book were illegal until 1991 in the Cherokee schools. But today, there is a Cherokee immersion school, and the children on the reservation are allowed to go and learn in their native language, the language that has been spoken by their people for hundreds of years. It is still an endangered language, though, so if any of you want, Navajo and Hawaiian are two indigenous native languages that are both on Duolingo, which is free, but also you can find books and classes on the Cherokee language as well. So, we are grateful.
Siyo, Gada, Tejadoa, Dakodoa, Hiya, Dikanehi. Hello, it's so nice to meet you. What's your name? My name's Dikanehi, and today we're going to be reading a Cherokee book. This is called We Are Grateful, or as you say in Cherokee, Ojali Heliga. It was written by Tracy Sorrell, and it was illustrated by Frene Lessek. We're going to read each one's dedication for what they want the book to be. Tracy says, for my family, fellow Cherokee citizens, and children everywhere. Frene says, for Tracy. Wado for sharing your story. Wado means thank you. Ojali Haliga. Cherokee people say Ojali Haliga to express gratitude, as a reminder to celebrate our blessings and reflect on struggles, daily, throughout the year, and across the seasons. Oligo, Hansti, fall time. When cool breezes blow and leaves fall, we say Ojali Heliga. As shell shakers dance all night around the fire, and burnt cedar scent drifts upwards during the great new moon ceremony. As we clean our houses, wear new clothes, enjoy a feast, and forget old quarrels to welcome the Cherokee New Year. While we collect buckbrush and honeysuckle to weave baskets, to remember our ancestors who suffered hardships and loss on the Trail of Tears, and have hope as our Alesi, grandma, cradles the newest member of the family and reveals the Cherokee name. There's Alesi, grandma. Gola, winter. As bears sleep deep and snow blankets the ground, we say Ojali Heliga. While elders share stories and we savor buttery bean bread and steamy hominy soup. We feed our animal and bird friends. As older children teach the younger ones how to make corn husk dolls and play cane flutes. While we gather to remember an uncle who has passed on. As men cuddle babies and sing traditional lullabies in Jalagi, the Cherokee language. Gogeyi, springtime. When showers fill streams and shoots spring up, we say Ojali Heliga. While men sing, asking for thunder and lightning's protection of the emerging sprouts that women tend. As we gather wild onions, spring's first food, and serve them with hen's eggs. As we practice patience to sew pucker toe moccasins and coil clay to build beautiful pots. As we plant ani, strawberries, an ancestral story's sweet-smelling reminder not to argue with each other. As we embrace a clan relative heading off to serve our country. Gogi, summertime. As the crops mature and the sun scorches, we say Ojali Heliga. When we grasp our gigs and wade into the cool creek to catch crawdads for supper. As we sink our teeth into the season's first harvest at the green corn ceremony. While we click-clack sticks, chase a small ball, and fling it high up the stickball game pole. When we recall the ancestor sacrifices to preserve our way of life. To celebrate Yulista Nidola, history, and listen to our tribal leaders speak at Cherokee National Holiday. Every day, every season, Ojali Heliga, we are grateful. And that is the end.
Our next hymn this morning is in the Gray Hymnal or on the wall. It's number 95. There is more love somewhere. Well, good morning again, and hello to everyone who is here and those who are watching us online, whether now or at a later time. Today is digging into the complicated, very present, and very big issue of climate change during one of what has to be the most gut-wrenching and terrifying political seasons in our country's history, in the hottest year on record, with more people and other life around the world in danger from our climate than ever before. It's a lot. It's like a lot. And one of the things that my fellow ministers and I, when we were writing and trying to do these sermons, all over the boards, it's like, how do we have hope when it's like this litany of fear? And one of the things that becomes very important in these times and places is to be able to balance the anxiety of the moment with the hope of the future. We have one group that's trying to drag us backwards and one who wants to come forward. And one of the things that the people who want to drag us back are really, really trying to do is to stop facts. There is a situation going on with a middle school, right? With Knifer Middle School in Kirkwood. There's a teacher there who was displaying a Palestinian flag in their classroom. A couple of their Jewish students who go to the synagogue I go to were there and said, well, we believe in a two-state solution. We would like you to put up an Israeli flag as well. So they were not asking them to take the Palestinian flag down. They were just saying we would like equal representation. The person replied and said, well, I will not do that. Okay, well, we're the grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, and this is very important to us. The teacher's reply was, well, that's your interpretation of history. Folks, when a social studies teacher is allowed to claim the Holocaust is an interpretation, we have problems. 10 million people, 6 million Jews did not die in a fantasy story. But what happens is when you change the facts, you control the narrative. So we have people that are claiming all kinds of terrible things, like that if you allow abortion, then we'll have babies killed after they're born. That's one of the big ones you hear. That's just not true. That doesn't happen. So the facts become weapons and become twisted in ways that support a narrative that these people want. One of the reasons that banning books is so important to these people is because the books have the facts. So you get rid of the books and nobody else gets to teach their side of things. And I will tell you, as you look throughout history, every empire has done this, okay? So let's go way back in history for a little bit to Bible times. And a bunch of people called the Babylonians invaded Israel. They took all the leaders of Israel and they drug them off. And they told the leaders of Israel, well, you have to be Babylonians now. And what the Jewish people did instead was they wrote down their story with their interpretation. Now, these are not facts necessarily that they're writing, right? But what they did is they subverted the texts that they were given. So they were given an epic in which the gods were drunk. I'm not making this up. The Epic of Gilgamesh says the gods were drunk, they were hung over, and human beings were too loud. So they sent a giant flood to wash everybody away because they had really bad headaches because they were so hungover. So they wanted to shut people up, so they just washed them away. What Israel did with that narrative is they took it and they said, no, our God believes in justice. So our God would only send a giant flood if there was true evil and true wickedness. So people had to be acting badly, not just being loud and partying. They had to be doing something against each other. Well, what were they doing? They were being inhospitable. They were killing one another. They were murdering each other. Those are the stories that you see in the Genesis narrative. They reframe to the basic story of a flood, right? But they take it and they twist it and they say, no, we're not going to let your gods be our gods. We're not going to let your interpretation be how this goes. We're going to keep what's important to us in this. So one of the things that is really important is for us to continually say the truth, to tell people that a clump of tissue the size of my thumbnail is not a human being. To say that, to be out front with it, and to say that there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of reasons why these procedures need to be legal. And lots and lots and lots and lots of reasons for politicians to not be involved in my medical life. There are lots and lots and lots of reasons. And we need to be able to say our reasons and what we believe. Now, some of you may disagree with me and think that chunk of tissue is alive. That's your right. I'm not going to say you can't. But medically speaking, that chunk of tissue is not alive because it cannot be independent from its host. It is, in fact, a parasite because it cannot live independently from its host. So, the thing is that, again, these people think the facts make them uncomfortable. It makes them uncomfortable that they might be a little bit racist, right? There's a song. Have any of you ever seen Avenue Q? Okay, it is not safe for church by any stretch of the imagination, but one of the songs in it is Everybody's Just a Little Bit Racist. And the point that they're trying to make is that the systems of society are inherently racist. Everybody's got biases against somebody. And so the whole point of it is to remind us and to poke us. They do it with satire. I'm doing it from the pulpit. But the thing is it should make us uncomfortable. I want people to speak their language, especially when they lived here before white people did. The fact that that was illegal until 1991, that should make us uncomfortable. You know, the fact that families are constantly being torn apart. The idea, if somebody shows up and tries to take my 5-year-old away from me, I'm going to tell you, I am not going to let him go nicely. Okay? You want to see Mama Bear come out, you try and take my kid away. But we rip children out of their mother's arms at the border, and we don't think that's a problem. That's a problem. Those women and those children are fleeing civil war. They're fleeing forced slavery. They're fleeing sexual exploitation. Of course they're running away. What parent wants their children to grow up in that environment? I don't. So we need to be out there with the facts, reminding people that, you know, yeah, there's the one person who committed a crime, but how many hundreds of thousands of other people came through who just want the chance to live in freedom? Something that these people want to take away from us. And it should make us uncomfortable. When I was watching the Olympics, I don't know if any of you saw this match, but I want to say it was badminton. There was an athlete who had injured her knee a few times, and they were doing this match, and she fell, and she was hurt, and the other athlete comes over and is like, "Are you okay?" You know, and she goes, "Yeah, I'll be all right." She pulls on a brace. She tries to go back out and crumples again. And the problem is that the other athlete's like super uncomfortable because they just want a medal, but they want it because the other person was injured. They knew, you could tell on their face that they knew they didn't really win it. They only got it because somebody else was hurt. And the thing is that is really what being white in America is today. Most of us only get ahead because, you know, somebody else got oppressed. Now the thing is that there's different shades of white. And what I mean by this is that, you know, the original standard that was set by our forefathers here, and I'm saying father deliberately, because patriarchy is a thing, right? So all the dudes that came over here originally, they're all English gentry, right? Rich English guys. And they all came over here and brought their rich English guy ways. So that became the standard. And everybody who didn't fit that standard got pushed down the heap. And it doesn't matter where you didn't fit in, you got pushed down. So if you were Irish or Dutch or poor, a poorer kind of white, you know, if you were British, but you were from like inner city London, you were down the heap farther, right? So you have this one tiny little sliver of people at the top, and everybody else gets pushed down and down and down and down. And I'm not saying it to shame anybody. None of us were alive then. I'm just saying, that's the fact. That's how the country was established. We established this country with a handful of rich white dudes up here, and everybody else was somewhere else on this heap. And what's really going on, and the reason I'm relating all this patriarchal garbage to climate change, is because our patriarchal society has pounded the fact that we have to win into our heads. You know the best way to sell stuff in America? You can mark it up as high as you want, as long as you then slap a label on it that says, 50% off sale, limited quantities, be there soon. There are people who get degrees in this stuff, in how to manipulate you into, I'm sorry, they call it marketing, but it's all about how to manipulate you into buying more junk, right? And why do people do that? Have you seen the brawls that happen at Black Friday sales? Like, anybody who's worked in retail is like, why? Why? Nobody actually needs the widget. Like, none of us are going to die if we don't have the widget, right? But people get so worked up about it because our society tells us that we must win. Everything in America is so skewed out of proportion. Did you know that in Europe, there are countries with laws that say you must take paid vacation, and your company must give you that paid vacation? I'm seeing a lot of people going, what? Yeah. In Denmark, it is considered a right. You get at least 4 weeks of paid vacation guaranteed every year, 2 weeks of which have to be allowed consecutively, and they have to be allowed at a time when your children can go. Because in Denmark, they believe that people deserve to live. They're not worried about winning. See, in Europe, healthcare is seen as a basic human right. It's a business here, and a traded profit one that the shareholders need to get more shares out of. Now, folks, I make money on the stock market, okay? So I'm not here inherently telling you the stock market is evil and has to go. What I am saying is I'm willing to earn less money if it means people can live. This is the difference. Toxic patriarchy, this toxic system we have, says we have to make the most profit no matter who gets hurt. Socially conscious consumerism, socially conscious capitalism says we want to make a profit, but not at the expense of human beings, not at the expense of the planet. It's not worth destroying the future for $10 extra today. And that's what you see. Now, Europe is not a panacea. It's not perfect. They've got terrible things going on over there as well, right? But at the same time, we have more of this junk than other places. Why is that? Well, in this sort of toxic patriarchal system, there is room for only one at the top of the heap. Everyone else is a non-entity. Do you guys remember? I think it was Nike. Maybe you can correct me on this one, but somebody for a while had a slogan. This was their company slogan. They put it on T-shirts and everything else. Second place is just the first loser. Do you guys remember that? What does that teach our kids when they're buying that product and putting that on themselves? That they're only of value, that their only worth is if they win. Not winning through good sportsmanship, not helping everybody get across the finish line, but being the only one at the top. So this is how we get to climate change, okay? Because in this sort of toxic attitude of you have to be the top, like every day, CNN or NBC, or it doesn't matter who you watch, they're always talking about who has the most money in the world. Have you noticed that? Like almost every day, oh, Elon Musk is back at the top of the thing. Oh, well, Bill Gates just gained another $25 billion today. Who cares? Really? What does it matter? But it is so important who is at the top of the Forbes 100 or 500 or whatever their thing is this week. And the thing is that what's going on is these really rich white guys, they're almost all white still, right? Or the majority ethnicity is what I should say, right? Because in every country, like if you go to China, the majority of them are the majority Han ethnicity, right? So like whatever country you're talking about, the dominant ethnicity is kind of the one that gets the most of these toxic, top of the heap people. And the thing is that the environment is one more thing for them to conquer on the way to the top. Because it's a thing that they will use to win. It is a disposable item, not something that they are inextricably a part of. Now, the problem is, and I have had the misfortune to meet some of these people, they are nothing but the chase. They have nothing else inside. It is really, really sad. So my husband and I were blessed enough, we saved for many years, and we got to go to Antarctica. And on our ship, of all people, was Martha Stewart. 70 people on this ship, right? Martha Stewart was on the ship. You know, she didn't come out. She didn't eat dinner with us. She didn't talk to the other people on the ship. She didn't go anywhere. She didn't fly with us. She showed up in her own private airplane, got on the ship, stayed in her suite, had her meals in her suite, came out. It was her and one assistant. I'm like, if I was a super billionaire, it would have been me and 100 of my closest friends on that ship. She was all alone. Because the richer you get, the tapper of the heap you are, the fewer real friends you have. Because to be a friend, you have to be vulnerable. To be a friend, you have to share of yourself. To be a friend, you have to give and receive. These people can't do that. All they can do is take and use and dispose. And the problem is that they've all started companies that do nothing but take and use and dispose. Whether it's their employees, we call them churn and burn shops, right? Everybody who's worked in retail, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You are a faceless, nameless schlub that can be replaced on a moment's notice, right? Why do you think the union busters work so hard to keep the unions at bay? Because the unions come in and all of a sudden people have a voice and their vote matters. Now, again, what do we do about this? The people who are not on top of the heap find ourselves with a couple options. One, and this is what the majority of people do, we buy into the lie of toxic patriarchy and we think, oh, well, if I just go to college, if I just work harder, if I just do a second job, if I just commit a little credit card fraud, if I just whatever, nobody starts out a criminal. People forget that, right? Like, it always starts with some kind of unmet emotional need. So if your unmet emotional need is to be at the top of the heap, then you're willing to do things, you're willing to take and use and dispose, whether it's a person, a place, a thing. And so because these kind of people want to be at the top, but they're not, they're willing to go to great lengths to get there. And the thing is that once we buy into that lie and we decide we're going to be at the top of the heap, that second place is the first loser, then we have to find somebody who's farther down than us and step on them to push our way up. Now, as you all know, I have a farm in Salem, Missouri. It is a gorgeous piece of land. It really is. And we're tending it as best as we can, trying to bring back what it was. Because in the 1800s, the first, white people that came through just leveled the place, right? They tore down all the trees. They dug up all the streams. I mean, it was really decimated. But the people who live out there are nice people. They really are. They care for each other. They help each other out. When hay was short last fall, my neighbors were all going back and forth with each other, making sure everybody had enough hay for their cattle. When a cow gets loose, we all get in our trucks and go tooling around, looking on the back 40 for the cow. Got to round it up and take it somewhere else. We all get together for a fall festival. We all get together, and if there's somebody's got cancer, they're all there doing a fundraiser for them. The thing is that they have been taught their entire life by the school they went to, which banned all the books about bodies that were different than theirs, right? By the media they watch, because one of the only channels they can get out there is Fox News. By their political leaders, well, you know what they're like in rural Missouri. By their churches, because the churches are part of this, okay? What they've all been told is that it's the liberal left that is destroying America. They fear queer people. They hate black people. They don't like city people, because they're all convinced that those are people that are destroying the rural way of life. Now, here's the deal. They know me, like this much of me, right? And many of them know that I'm a minister, and so they're like, oh, I'm so glad that you're serving the Lord and doing your thing out there, and I'm just like, And the point is, right, is like they know me and they like me and we get along just fine. But if they really knew the things that I talk about, if any of them get online and watch what's going on Sunday morning, the pitchforks might come out. Why is that? It's not because they're bad people. It's because they've been taught that they have to be at the top of the heap. And they've been taught that the way to get to the top of the heap is by forking other people behind you, so that you can build up. The thing is that they don't question whether the toxic heap needs to exist. They only question why they're not at the top. And this makes sense, because questioning the status quo is higher order thinking. Now, I don't know what y'all's background is in psychology, but almost everybody's heard of Maslow's hierarchy, right? Real basic. You gotta have food, you gotta have water, you gotta have shelter. Then if you have all of that, then the next one you can start like having a social network, and so on and so on and so on, right? Higher order thinking, the ability to critique the water you're swimming in, is way up here by the top, okay? So for these people who are making minimum wage or less, because farmers and teachers work about the same amount of hours for the same amount of pay, okay? When you're totally stressed out because your cows are starving to death because there's no hay, and the water's all drying up, and you're not sure what you're going to be able to find or do, you're not questioning the motives of society, right? You're not doing the higher order thinking because you're still down here in the survival land. Farming is incredibly hard work. So is retail. Standing on your feet all day is awful. Dealing with people in the public. Please don't be those people. For God's sake, when you talk to somebody in retail, smile. Say thank you. Wish them a good day. The number of people I have heard, like behind, I'm in the line at Costco, and somebody's up there just abusing, literally verbally abusing the person up there. It's just wrong. That person has no control. The company gives them no control over changing anything. That is not how companies work, right? The person checking out your groceries does not, in fact, have the power to fix the price of beef. I wish they did. They wish they did, but they don't. So why are people so thoughtless and cruel? Well, because again, they're in this survival mode, and they think that this person checking them out is below them in the heap, so they're going to shove them so they can get a little higher. So here's the thing. All of this fighting for survival, whether it's inner city folks, suburban folks, rural America, they don't have the time and energy. They don't have the ability to question if reality needs to change. But the people who do have the time and energy to question are the really rich guys that the system works for. So why would they question it? Because it works great for them. So why would they blow it up? After all, they are at the top. And this is what makes the story of Buddha so amazing. The story of this pampered prince who leaves it all behind to go on a spiritual journey. It would be essentially like Elon Musk giving all of his money away, shutting down Twitter, going off to end hunger and homelessness in America, and then joining a monastery at the end. Now, I have to tell you, it would do him and this country a world of good, so I really hope he would. But I'm not so much thinking it's going to happen. This is also what makes the story of Jesus so powerful, because his disciples were part of this idea. They had this mentality. They said, Jesus, give us the sign and we will conquer Rome. We will kick them out. You're the king. You're the Messiah. You're the promised one. You're going to make this work. And Jesus said, we're not here for that. They're like, but we're going to overthrow Rome and make you king and you'll be the top of the heap. And Jesus is like, we're not here for that. We're at the edge of another one of these kind of seismic changes. Buddha understood that the kingdoms were at war because of their desires. The desire and the craving to be at the top of the heap. Now, it was a little different in 2800 BCE, but the basics of wanting to be at the top of the heap are the same. Jesus understood that when we want to be king, then we haven't realized the deeper message of the spiritual life. The deeper message of the spiritual life only happens at the smallest and the deepest levels. It turns everything upside down and inside out. It doesn't let you have the status quo be the goal. Instead, Jesus preached that the last will be first and the first will be last, that the lowly will be lifted up, as Mary sings in Magnificat, and the rich will be humbled. The Bible, like I talked about, the Babylonians came and conquered the Jews. Then the Syrians came, Persians came. Who else? I'm missing like 4 of them. A whole bunch of people came and conquered the Jews. Okay, they've been conquered a lot. Then Rome came and conquered the Jews. But what happens every time is that the Jewish writers come back and say, but God's going to raise up the underdog. Moses had a speech disorder. You may not have known that. If you read the text, he says when God calls him out of the burning bush, he goes, I can't talk to people. I can't talk right. And we're not sure if it was a stutter or if he had Tourette's. We don't know if it was. He says, I can't talk right. You should tell my brother Aaron. My brother Aaron knows how to talk. And God goes, no, I'm sending you. Joseph was a dreamer. He was kind of an idiot, actually. He had his head in the clouds. He told his brother some silly stuff. He wasn't the smartest guy when it came to interpersonal skills at all. But he's the one that was chosen to lead his people from slavery in Egypt, or to freedom in Egypt. David, small and scrappy, definitely not a soldier, right? So you have this 12-year-old kid standing up against the head of the army back when big and bad was the thing. You have Jesus. One of the best quotes in the Bible is when somebody's talking, they're like, you should come hear this man, Jesus of Nazareth. And the leader looks at them and says, nothing good comes out of Nazareth. It's the equivalent of somebody going, well, you should go to this church that's on the east side of St. Louis. Nobody's any good in East St. Louis. You know, pick the district of town that you don't like, right? Like, nobody's going to be good in Ferguson. That's the kind of attitude that people had. His disciples were a motley crew, right? So Mary Magdalene, they're talking about it. She had some kind of mental disorder. The Bible says that she was delivered of many demons. So probably schizophrenia, multiple personalities, something like that. Like, she had something really wrong with her. And she became one of the foremost leaders of early Christianity. The list goes on, because the thing is that the people who get picked by the larger spirit is about toppling the status quo. You know, when you're there to undo the heap, you can't be the leader at the top. This is why Jesus says a rich person has more chance of going to a camel. A camel has more chance of crawling through the eye of a needle. Now, y'all ever threaded a needle? Okay, camel versus needle. And people love to make excuses. Oh, my Lord, the number of sermons I have heard where they try to justify how a camel could go. Well, maybe it was a gate in Jerusalem that was called. No, the text is really clear. Jesus is saying, if you can shove a camel through the eye of a needle, that's the chance that a rich man has of being in God's kingdom. Because Jesus knew when you're caught up in the toxic status quo, you're not going to be with spirit. You're not going to be one of those shakers and bakers that changes things for the better. Now, when I started this sermon, I was really talking about, the 10 things we can do to address climate change. And I was like, you guys know all this? We bring refillable water bottles. We use less fossil fuels. We're talking about a green sanctuary when we build our new church. Everybody recycles. Peg is always on about what the right kind of plastic is and paper to compost. We know all this stuff. We're on top of it. So the question I had that I brought to this is, what is it that only Unitarian Universalists, what is it that only we can do to help topple the heap? So remember how I'm talking about the neighbors and how they don't think about the heap because they're part of it? Well, the thing is, they've been taught their whole life that, especially if they've lived in Missouri, because Missouri's been a red state, a very toxic place for a long time. They've been taught that they deserve to be up higher and that other people are holding them back. And the people that are holding them back are fill in the blank, but it's a different from them, right? It's a different color skin, it's a different sexual orientation, it's a different gender, it's a different church, it's a different religion, whatever. But what they're being told is that if they just shove those people down, they'll be higher up on the heap. And because they're not getting outside views, that tends to be what they believe. But then here comes this neighbor. And what I like to do is what Jesus called being yeast in the loaf. He was all about subversive, right? He knew that you protest Rome, you get crucified. I mean, in the end, it's what got it. He was accused of, claiming to be the king of the Jews. And Rome went, oh, really? That's treason. Bang, bang, off you go. He knew that you had to be subversive. I understand that people love to protest. I'm not one of those people. But if protesting is your jam, have at it. However, for the most part, protesting in front of SpaceX or the Supreme Court or anywhere you want, really, it's just going to be you out a lot of money for travel. You're not going to change this current Supreme Court. Pretty sure it's not going to happen. You're probably just going to wind up getting arrested. Don't recommend it. Not a good experience. So what do? The toxic heap is really big, and it's really heavy, and it tends to crush people who push it away. But what we can do is start composting it, right? Just like yeast. Now, I have this new bread made, and it is so cool. I am still amazed by this. Never ceases to amaze me. I put in 2 pounds worth of flour and water and a little bit of salt and 1 or 2 other ingredients, and then I put in 2 pounds of stuff, and I put in 2 teaspoons, like barely enough to fill a thimble, like a finger's worth. And it turns from a bowl of mush into this big fluffy loaf of bread. This can be us. Confrontation, while it may make us feel better at the moment because we got to vent our spleen, does not normally change anyone's mind. Yelling at people does not change that. I wish it did, believe me, but it doesn't. But what happens is when people are like bemoaning, when people I knew are talking about it and they're just venting and stressing about, oh my God, I don't have any PTO and this sucks and I can't do it. Just being like, Europe, you get paid time off. It's a guaranteed thing by the government. Plant that seed. Let them know the alternative facts. Let them know the real facts that it doesn't have to be this way. When my neighbors start bemoaning the illegals committing crimes, I can sit down and share the story of the migrant woman that I met who fled the civil war going on in Venezuela and her children. And the fact that I'm pretty sure a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old are not committing any major felonies anytime soon. When things are going on, we have to humanize it. Most of the time, they just haven't met somebody. Most of the time, they're just scared. Now, it doesn't always work. My yeast doesn't always work. Sometimes when I bake a loaf of bread, it comes out unique. You got to remember, you're not here to convert someone to the liberal point of view in like 1.5 seconds, okay? We are not going to go knocking down doors, have you met our Lord and Savior, the liberal agenda? That's not how we are. But what we are doing is planting seeds. If you go out, there's a farm in Missouri called Centennial Farm, and we go out there about once a year or so to plant apples, to pick apples. There is a tree out there that was planted by Johnny Appleseed. It's really freaking cool because here's a dude who in the 1800s went around sticking seeds in the ground. He had no idea. He wasn't even here when this seed grew, right? So you're planting these seeds with no knowledge or comprehension of what's going to come behind you. What's the old saying? The best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago, and the second best time is today. But before we can plant seeds and do the work, we have to face our own stuff. Because if we're still angry and grieving and stressed about the toxic junk, we're just going to turn it and dump it on whoever we're trying to talk to. There are so many times that when my neighbors are out there, I really like my neighbors, but man, they want to mow their lawn like 5 times a week, and I'm just like, seriously? Seriously? And they get out the leaf blower. I'm like, there are 3 blades of grass on the sip. Could you just not? But the thing is that they're just as much at the bottom of this toxic heap as you and I are. They're just as much caught up in the way society works as we are. They just haven't realized it yet. So lashing out at them is counterproductive. They can't change the whole heap any more than I can. The only difference between us and them is that they still believe in climbing the heap, whereas we believe in composting it. So, to be really effective, we have to get an understanding and a handle on who we're really mad at. And this is the hardest thing because we're not mad at a person. It's really, really easy to be mad at a person. It is so easy to look at Elon Musk is a great example because he does a lot of awful stuff. And it's really good to just look at this one dude and go, that guy. But really, that guy is a product of the patriarchal system just as much as anybody else. And so hating that guy who is a symptom is like hating a fever when you're sick. The fever is not the problem, right? The germs that invaded your system are the problem, but you can't see them. There's a billion of them, and what are you going to do about it? Well, yelling at the fever doesn't change the disease. It's the same way with our system. And the hardest part of all of this is knowing that we're not going to see the results. I wonder sometimes how Johnny Appleseed did it. To spend your whole life dedicated to a project with no knowledge of whether any of those trees would sprout or whether somebody would just cut them all down, or who knows what could have happened. But at the same time, here I am more than 100 years later looking at a tree that came from somebody who had a dream and pursued it. That's why we come here. We come here week after week after week to look around and to see that we're not the only people who think this way. We're not the only people doing the work. We're not the only ones who are trying to make a difference. We come here both to be restored so that we can get out there for another week, and also to celebrate the banned books, to celebrate our kids asking questions, to celebrate all the good things that we have. So we breathe in hope, and then we can breathe out change. And it's a daily process, little by little by little. But the truth in the universe, really, is that things don't happen all at once. Change is very slow and very gradual. But we can get there together. Amen, and blessed be. Our final hymn this morning is number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Robin? Are you good for offering? That's okay. As we pass around it's all good. I know, good questions. All right, as Robin passes around our offering basket, I remind you that we are supported only by your giving. However, it is not just money that we want. We want your time and your talent as well. So we will put you to work. Let us know. If this is your first time here, please don't feel like you need to give, because we want this service to be our gift to you. Please join with me in our offering prayer this morning. May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice. Alex, did you have any announcements this morning? All right, and while he's coming up, I want to make an announcement. September 17th, I believe, it'll be in the newsletter, is my first class of the year. It's going to be social justice for the rest of us, so it's basically everything but protesting. How to do social justice work in many different ways, many different levels. So it'll be on Zoom. Again, just check the newsletter. So.
All right, so a couple of quick announcements. I wanted to let you all know that we had someone finish out their pledge from the 2024 year, so we added a little bit back to the previous year. We opened up the budget, did some things, so it's a little extra, 4,000 and change. And so they also added a nice pledge after the pledge closed for the new year. This doesn't change the budget that you voted on. It just means that we will have to take less money out of our board fund that we have set aside from previous years. That's exciting. It's fantastic. So, and the other thing is, you all noticed that we switched back to yellow. We had some members reach out and express concern about the metrics that we were using and that they weren't being appropriately updated. So we've taken the time to find not just local wastewater data, but larger CDC data and other areas around us, and have a broader picture to make sure that we are getting accurate metrics that are properly updated. I just wanted to let you all know that that's what we're doing, and the yellow is mask in sanctuary. Yeah. So we're going to keep that updated. We're following the policy that we've all voted on, and we're just gathering more data. So that's it.
We'll update you as need be.
Yep.
Okay, couple things. Number one, we had a really good day at SIUE, right, this week. We met a bunch of students, and some of them had some really explicit interest in coming here. So we'll see how that goes. We have a bunch of events coming up, as you know. We have the 14th is Edwardsville Pride, and not Edwardsville, Alton Pride, which Jessie is taking lead on. So if anybody's interested, please talk to her. On the 28th, we've got two events. The first one is Unity Festival, where we will be setting up a booth. I'm taking lead on that. So if anybody is interested in volunteering, a couple hours shift there. It's like 11 to 3 or something like that, usually 11 to 3 or 4, yeah. And then in the evening, we are going to be holding a fundraising concert with Summer Osborne. For those of you who may or may not know her, she's an amazing singer. And she said to me, I saw her at the National Women's Music Festival. She sang there back in July, and she said, Robin, she goes, I have sung at Unitarian churches all over the United States. Why not in my home area? Because she's from Vandalia. And I said, we're going to make that happen. So the concert will be, the doors will open at 7, but the concert will be at the Dome on the SIUE campus. It'll be there from 7:30 to 9:30, so 2 hours of music. We are working on the details with respect to how to buy tickets and stuff like that. We're limited to 100 people. That's all we got. But what we are going to be asking of you is, if someone wants to volunteer that evening, I know it's going to be a busy day during the day. If someone wants to volunteer in the evening, please come see me, and we'll get you to come in and help. Mostly what we need is somebody who will be there to check people in and to serve refreshments. We will also be asking you all to make donations of some of the food items, and we'll let you know what those are, because that will cut our costs down if you guys are willing to. If you can't make it, but you want to donate money to support the purchase of those refreshments, which we will then turn around and try to sell for more fundraisers. So that's what's going on there. We had a really fun game night the other night on Thursday. Woo woo! And so we got my butt kicked playing Pokemon Labyrinth. Yeah, that was a good job, buddy. Yeah, it was a load of fun. So you lost too, exactly. See, So it was a blast, and and all we really are trying to do is just create community for ourselves and community for the kids. and we really had a lot of fun just kind of hanging out. I made tacos, and and there's leftovers here, so we'll eat those today to do that. Other than that, I don't think. Yes. Yeah. If this is not a good night, that we picked it Thursday at 5:30. If that doesn't feel like a good night for you, we can choose some other time to do it. Go ahead, Mary. Oh yeah, that's the last one. I knew there was one more other thing on my list. Thank you, Mary, for that. On the weekend of the 21st, 22nd, whatever. On the 20th. We are, for those that were here that heard Sayer in the pulpit regarding Bergfried and camping and the importance of camping for healing and spiritual growth, etc. He is going to be, he and I, will be hosting you all if you want to come out to Bergfried. Bergfried is property owned by Elliott Chapel, and it's out in Hermann, Missouri. It's a little bit of a trek, but it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. We'll probably have sort of a small little prayer service out there. Games, food, you name it. So we will have, I know that you've got some information coming in the newsletter. Yeah, look for that in the newsletter. So if you're interested in rustic camping and you want to come for the weekend or come for like Saturday night overnight, after we're out there, let me know and we'll work out the plans on that. But the goal really is for us to be just together in nature, hiking, eating, campfire, having fun, relaxing and enjoying, and commingling, whatever we need to do. So anyway, I don't think there's anything else I need to add. I think that's it.
Yeah. Jennifer.
Okay, if you heard it earlier, I'm sorry for repeating myself, but next week we're starting RE classes, and I'm really, really excited to get started. We have some really fun plans. We're going to have 3 classes going in the same room, so we're going to see how that works out. But it's going to be really fun, and so bring kids so we can teach them. Thank you.
One more.
September is dense. Yeah, we have a lot of things happening. Also, we have the Goshen Market on the 14th, in addition to the Alton Pride. And I have a new and improved sign-up sheet out there that makes it a little more clear because we're combining the things that they have at the Masons, our outreach, and our church services and things that are in-house. So do check out that. And then shooting ahead a little bit to October, this is our new and improved signage. Denise, can you help me unveil our sign? This is for the Halloween parade. And we have 2 of the chairs that we'll be using in the parade out on the porch here. Pick them up. They're a little heavy, but we're going to switch hands from time to time, and everybody will do a good arm workout in the parade. This is our, Denise is going to help me work some wonder. I made it so that it's kind of multi-purpose. I'm going to use it at the Goshen Market, but we'll also be carrying this banner in the parade. So, and it's fun.
Nice. That's awesome.
What I like about it is this is the parade. They all go this way, which means all the people in the front, so we're going to do it different. We're going to do it lengthwise. So the people at the side in the parade.
Nice. Beautiful. Awesome. All right, so there is no excuse to not have fun in September and October. I think we have something going every single weekend, so that's fantastic. I invite you to join with me now as we extinguish our chalice. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. The keepers of this flame until we meet again. May we each breathe in hope and love here with every breath. And when we are tempted this week to be angry at those who are still focused on winning the toxic heap, may we instead be able to plant seeds of change. Amen and blessed be. Let's eat.